Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd One Out with your host Mark. Today I'll be talking about a series of films that could be labelled The Hills Have Eyes movies. Right, this set of films started in the 70s. There were two in the 70s, one in the 70s and a sequel in the 80s, and then there was a reboot in 2006 and a sequel to that in 2007. Interesting film. First film was made by Wes Craven, who was famous for other horror films. He made Last House on the Left, which is a really nasty, quite horrible film, but it's got its place in film history because some of the limits he pushed. He was really pushing back the boundaries with that film, and it was quite a nasty film. I didn't like it whatsoever, and I'll never watch it again. I've watched it once. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but it was shockingly nasty, and I just didn't find it entertaining, to be honest. I just found it grim, and I really do I eke out pleasure in all sorts of films that other people don't really like, so it's really something for me to say that about a film. However, this I found much better. I think he also went on to do like Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, so he's like a horror legend, kinda, in terms of director and producing and stuff. However, he did make this film in 1977. Great premise: a scouting family get lost in the desert, and there's a mutant cannibal family out there who are hungry. I liked this. This was good. It was good fun. It was very cheap. You can see it was cheap, but it was effective, and it really did deliver on the poster. There was some also quite interesting character design that I really liked. The cannibal family were kind of tribally, Native American-y. They kind of, I think their design looks like it was used in things like Mad Max 2 and Mad Max 3 in terms of the sort of tribal post-apocalypse look. But this is, I think, the first instance of it. It's really nice. And they're a very creepy family. The actor's really quite good. Michael Berryman's in it. He's got that very famous look, bald-headed, kind of odd-looking chap. And he was used to quite good effect. He was part of the mutant clan. There was also another guy, and I can't remember his name, dressed up as one of the younger clan. He had a great big afro, I'm sure it was a wig, and pointy teeth, and he was well dodgy. And he had a great sort of voice for this kind of thing. For example, he burst into a caravan. There's a young girl and a baby there, and girl's already been kind of attacked, and he just looks at her and he says, "You fat, baby fat and juicy." And it's really creepy. Really like that. I also like the fact this isn't just people getting picked off in the usual kind of slasher trope. They what am I saying? This was pre-slashers mostly, before they really took off. But this family fight back, and they start trying to take it to the cannibal family, and it's kind of interesting. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was rather good. It wasn't great for what it was good, but it wasn't a great film. I don't know, actually. I saw it 15-20 years ago, and a lot of it I still remember quite clearly, especially that big afro guy with the weird voice. I'd give this 65 out of 100, actually. On IMDb it's 6.3 out of 10, so it's kind of the same ballpark. Would definitely recommend seeing it, though, especially if you like your horror films and your grindhouse films. It's kind of a horror film, but more a grindhouse exploitation film, really. After this came the sequel, Hills Have Eyes. There was a good gap between these two films. In 1985 it came out, and this was kind of a cash-in. It really wasn't a very good film. It was goofy. It was about bikers, not leather-clad hardcore bikers, but like trial bikers, youngsters trial biking out in the desert. They've heard all these stories, but one of them is one of the women that was part of the original clan. Her name's Ruby. I'm pretty sure it's the same actress. She looks completely different. And she should know better. She should know better than they go about that. But she does, and it turns out there's still some around. There's another one called the Reaper, who is the big brother of the patriarch in the first one, which is just, and that completely destroys the logic of the first one, because in the first one they make it clear they have this one patriarch who basically almost killed his own mother, having to give birth to him, who wasn't a mutant or anything. She was sort of a normal woman, and such that it like wrecked her. But then they talk about, he's got a big brother who's even bigger than he is. And you think, well, why didn't they mention that in the first one? Anyway, there's this guy called the Reaper. There's more of the old tribal look. There's more goofy. This isn't scary at all. There's stupid things in it, like they find a deserted house in the middle of the desert. And there's a functioning shower in it. Oh, how convenient that is for women to start showering. Yeah, okay. And there's some goofy dialogue. I forgot to mention in the first one there's a pair of dogs, which is quite a pair of Alsatians or German Shepherds, called Beauty and Beast, and they're used to really good effect, helping the attack, or the dogs instigate attacks themselves. And one funny thing about this sequel is one of the dogs from the first one, who's called Beast. Throughout the film, various characters kind of have flashbacks to the first one who were involved in the first movie, and the dog itself has a flashback, which is kind of astounding. It's kind of so mad it kind of works. Anyway, I kind of like this film despite all this. It wrecked the logic completely, but it was kind of fun, and I didn't think that much of it. I gave it 48 out of 100. On IMDb it's 3.3 out of 10, and people hate it, really hate it. It's not that bad. It really isn't that bad. It's goofy and it ruins the logic, but it's wacky and stuff, and it's not particularly scary. It's not particularly even gory, I don't think. A bit, I suppose. Alright then, okay, that was the end of that. No, I don't think that many people saw that sequel. And then, as with a lot of horror films these days, it got a remake in 2006. This was one of the earlier ones, I would guess. I'm not sure about the remake cycles. And it was pretty much a remake of the first one. A family get lost in the desert. Some of the tropes in it get changed, to my mind, the better. It's almost like the guy who runs a petrol station, he directs them the wrong way deliberately, and it's almost like he's been doing that for a long time, because there's lots of ruined cars found at one point. There's some really interesting visuals in this. There's because they go on about the fact there's atomic tests there. In fact, the film starts almost with a scientist sweeping a sort of place for radiation and doing various tests, but getting slaughtered wholesale, and then it settles down into this family. It was all right. The father was interesting. It was Ted Levine, who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, so horror prestige there. But the man has got quite a lot of presence, and he also reminds you of people that are elsewhere in the sort of horror realm. He reminded me of William Hurt a bit, which he isn't that much of a horror actor, but he was in, say, Altered States, which is an old film. He also conjured up Craig T. Nelson, who was the father in Poltergeist. And he also, to me, conjured up slightly Craig Wasson, who's an actor who was in a Brian De Palma film called Body Double. He conjured up all of those, and he was quite a presence. It was a good addition to the cast here. None of the rest of the actors were that great, but they were functional and fine. There was no bad actors particularly. There was also a girl in it who was like the blonde pregnant one in Lost, if I remember right. I haven't really seen Lost. It was one of the younger sisters. And there's some really wacky, weird, horrible stuff in this that it works well as a grindhouse film. This is a 2000s noughties grindhouse movie in essence, and it works well on that level. I kind of like this, actually. I liked it as much as the original. I thought it took a while to start. It was too slow to start. That was one thing I didn't like about it. But once it got going, it was really good. I really like the creature design in this and its sequel, actually. I thought it was really interesting creature design. And I think this remake was one of those that stands up, actually. It works well. It's a great premise, isn't it? Mutant cannibals, families in the desert. I kind of liked it. I thought it worked well. And then also there was things like that one guy ended up in like a town. He had to go and rescue the baby, which was like an element of the first the original film. and they were in this weird town full of, and there was more of these mutants this time. You didn't quite know how many there were. You didn't know if it was a town or just a family or just odds and ends, stragglers. You didn't quite know. But the fact is, there was a pan back shot where you saw loads of craters in the desert, A bombs being tested, and he was in a car. He was in one of the craters. I don't think he did know it was a crater full of deserted cars with newish stuff in it. So he thought it was some sort of dumping ground, but it's obviously where the family had where they killed and eaten people. They'd dragged the. They'd taken the cars. They have some weird old mutants. There was also one who had an enormous head, couldn't really move, was in a wheelchair, who was kind of the brains of the Alpha. He wasn't obviously intelligent, but he was controlling things through a walkie-talkie. He comes to a bit of a sticky end. I just thought it was a good film. It too slow to start, but otherwise pretty solid grindhouse film. The second movie, made a year later, I'll give that 65 out of 100, by the way, and it's 6.4 on IMDb, so same ballpark. The Hills Have Eyes 2, I like the premise. The premise here was one we're familiar with, the aliens, basically soldiers going into an area, not realising they're at risk, and then having to try and figure their way out. These were fairly inept rookie soldiers, and we actually see them. It looks like they're in Iran doing in the field, but it's actually just film maneuvers, and they're pretty bad at what they do. Anyway, they ended up taking deliveries to these scientists in this area, finding everyone dead. Their truck gets burnt out. They can't get any radio communications, and basically they've got to handle these mutants. They realise they're under attack from mutants, or they're being picked off one by one. There's some interesting things in this. The creature design is really good. The premise is really good. It looks really good. One thing it does fall down on, though, a couple of key roles, not good actors. There's a sergeant, a Marine sergeant. You know the kind of guy. You've seen it in Aliens. The actor playing him wasn't good at it, and there was a couple of others in the main roles that weren't good, but others were fine. It was almost like the casting was almost there, but not quite. But they just went with it, which is kind of a shame. If the actors had been better, this would have been up to about the same standards as the first remake. There's lots of creature design. They introduce a new trope in this one, which is really nasty when you think about it. Basically, they take women to impregnate them, to spawn more of them, to keep their numbers up. And it kind of starts, the whole film starts with a scene like that, which is grim. And there's some nastiness in this film to show you they're kind of doing that. Well, yeah, they do show you it. Though not extremely graphically, but enough to be quite horrible. So there was some interesting stuff in this, and these guys trying to fight their way out. There were some really interesting, good shots. There was one bit where they actually find someone stuck inside a toilet, inside a what would you call it? The dugout pit underneath a porta toilet. He's deliberately been stuck in there. They pull him out, and he's covered in cuts, and they figure out that someone put him in there deliberately so he'd die slowly, because like the feces would infect his cuts, and the infections would kill him. Massive infection would kill him, which is very convenient. He dies at the perfect time to make the plot work. They pull him out, they clean him up. He tells them something about they're not safe, then he just dies. Yeah, you don't quite die like that of an infection, I don't think. But anyway, it was kind of a nasty, grim scene, but effective. So there's an example of one good thing in it. But as I say, some of the poor acting in a couple of the key roles let this down a bit. It was okay. I would... in fact, I think if those actors had been better, I might have even rated this higher than the first one. I like this pair of films. They're not bad. I'd give this 62 out of 100. On IMDb, it's rated 5 out of 10, so it's a little lower. But I think it was worthy of something more than that. It was stylish looking, and there was a lot of thought about the story. Some of the story elements were really good. It was just the execution, the acting sort of kind of let it down. Anyway, there's my thoughts on those 4 movies. I personally like them all. I would recommend the original and these last 2. And you can afford give a miss to the original sequel, Hills Have Eyes 2, made in 85, you could miss that and not really have missed much. But if you're a complete list and a bit sort of obsessive compulsive, then watch all 4. Fine. Okay then, bye.
They wanted to see something different, but something different saw them first. The Hills Have Eyes.
Mister, don't take your family back in that area. The silver has been gone for 40 years now. Besides, there's nothing back in there but animals.
We're lost. The old creep told you not to get off the road.
What began as a vacation ended as a nightmare.
The hell to pay now?
The hell was that?
She thought she knew what the world was all about, but nothing prepared her for this. The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, you going with my baby?
Get out of the way, Dick.
A mother fighting for her child loses it in the worst possible way.
I hit him with a tire iron and I split his face wide open. That was a bad mistake, but I come back for you later, girlie. Why are you doing this?
The story of an American family who lost everything except the will to survive. Murdered, raped, burned, but not beaten. The Hills Have Eyes. The story of one family's refusal to die.
I'm gonna get those animals.
The Hills Have Eyes. A night of terror. A day of vengeance where no one was spared. No one.
Kill the babe! Kill me!
They fought back. Anything was a weapon. The family dog to the family car.
It's working!
The Hills Have Eyes. The most shocking, terrifying film you will ever see, by Wes Craven, writer and director of The Last House on the Left. The Hills Have Eyes. The lucky ones died first.